So when I went to see the doctor, I remember it was a day before my 27th birthday, and the doctor, I asked the doctor, what my prognosis was, and she told me, I think you have another 1 year with us.
Oh.
So he told me that day, he won't even charge me for the consultation, but my payment will be for me to go and read the book of John, and then we can have a discussion. And I went to see her about 2 weeks ago, because I still need to go for this test. I went to see her about 2 weeks ago, and she told me, listen, I honestly don't have a medical explanation for what how your body is reacting. You should be really sick by now. And I told her, it's really God.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Indeed.
Pearl Radio, the home of fresh and classic hits.
We need to continue to evangelize, empower, and entertain you at the same time. Once in a while, we also get to encourage you with some cool stories and testimonies of people who have made it in life, who have been in something and they have come out of it. And today in studio, we have the privilege of having the amazing, beautiful looking Air. Hello, good evening.
Evening to you.
How are you this evening?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing fine, fantastic. You look so lovely. I like your hair. And
you
also
so
your
much.
dress. This radio. We don't dress up for radio.
No, but we have to. We have to show up.
Probably you can introduce yourself and tell us more about you.
My name is Mwende Mutuse. I'm 31 years old. I am an auntie, soon to be mom. I'm 8 months pregnant.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And this is my firstborn, so I'm looking forward to that. I am a sister. I am the 5th born in our family. I live with my mom. What else should I say?
Yeah, you live with your mom.
Yes.
Where were you born? Where were you raised?
I was born in Nairobi, born and raised in Nairobi. I was born in 92, and then I'm a student, a psychology and counseling student at Daystar University. At the moment, I'm not in school. I have a bit of a pause there. However, that is something which I'm passionate about, and I will later share why. So that I am an entrepreneur. I sell, I make and I design and sell brass accessories. So that is one of my passion. I'm very artistic. So and you can tell from my hair.
Yes.
My red hair. So yes, I'm artistic. I love art. I love creating.
Oh, nice. So probably can you get into your story and tell us, probably to start even us off, how was life growing up? What are some of the memories you recall growing up? How was life?
So I am the 5th born in our family, and I'm also the last born. So growing up, my childhood was up to the age of 8. I would say it was really wonderful. My dad was a bishop. Unfortunately, he passed on when I was 8, but he was a bishop. So I've grown up in a Christian family. My mom was a minister, and so growing up, I have to say I had a really good childhood. I remember on Tuesdays and Thursdays we had family time, and on Tuesday was Bible study. On Thursdays we had game night. So I have really wonderful memories growing up, and it's something which I still practice with my family every now and then. We are not as consistent as we were before, but it's something we are now passing on to my nieces and nephews as well, playing together and just having fun as a family. So yeah, my childhood, I'll say, was really good. I went to primary school in Isli. We had a diverse exposure in terms of cultures. We not diverse, but exposure in terms of culture. We had neighbors who were Ethiopians, went to school with Somalis, so we've seen those different cultures. Like one of my favorite foods right now, it's injera, for Ethiopian injera. So we lived in a very exposed environment, not just the Christian background, but we also saw the other side of different religions, Catholics and Islam. So yeah, I have to say it was quite wholesome. Yes.
Oh, nice. And growing up, do you remember any instance that you used to have issues battling with your health? Probably were you an okay child, or do you have any instance that you remember going to hospital and the likes? How was your health growing up?
I would say it was actually very okay. It was very okay. I was never, I've never been admitted when I was a child or even a teenager, in hospital. I did have, the illnesses which children have, the, amoebas and malaria, but nothing significant, nothing too serious. So I would say in terms of my health, it was really okay. Actually, in our family, I would say the same. Health-wise, we have had a good background.
Yeah. Oh, nice. I love it. And now I understand that you grew up in like a bishop house.
Yes.
But at what point, because they say you don't get born again because your family, you grew up in a born again Christian family. Yeah. At what point did you give your life to Jesus Christ?
I would say, a couple of times throughout my life, not once. And I would even say, the latest one being probably this year.
Oh.
So I have had phases in my life where I didn't even believe in God. I won't even lie. So when, as I said, my dad passed on when I was 8, and that was the first instance where my faith was really challenged, mainly because of how the people around us behaved after his passing. You tend to know people's true colors after, a tragedy happens. And for us as a family, I remember my dad had, I think, 21 or 22 branches. And when he passed, at that young age, I could understand what people were saying and what was happening. And I know during that period, the pastors who were in charge of these different churches, branches, were actually fighting for the equipments and the branches. So it was really chaotic. And at that time, most of the people who used to frequent at our place, they just disappeared. And I have to say, most of them were actually men of God. So for me, now that was quite a change, a turn of events. And at that age, I believe that if you're a Christian, you have to be perfect, So I also understand I was quite naive. So that really challenged my faith. And from there, I remember I started losing hope in God. And I also started doubting if there is a God, because I remember thinking, my dad was a wonderful person. He used to help so many people. He was a bishop. He was teaching us how to live in a Christian, Christian ways. And I could not understand why he died. He was ill for quite a while. And I remember even praying to God and telling God to heal him. And he never got well, So those are some of the things I used to feel like, it was unfair, especially for him, since, again, he's a man of God. So if he can let a man of God suffer and die, then does he have that healing power which we hear of? So those are some of the things which I was processing at that age.
And now you've seen you give your life to Christ several times. This is just one instance at it. And probably in most churches, when you get, like, for example, like the dad is the bishop, normally you'll find that probably the wife to the bishop has also assumed a role in church. Probably she's an evangelist, a pastor as well. I'd love to know that about your mom. How's mom?
Mom was, she has always been, to date, she has always, believed in God. And there's nothing which happens that my mom will tell you there's no God. She's such a believer. So for her, she did encourage us to continue going to church. Actually, initially she was forcing us. It was not an optional. We had to still go to church, but we started going to a different church because now the branches which my dad had started kind of just split, and everybody took everything, and so we started afresh, basically.
From scratch, from a new church or something.
There was an existing one which was in Nairobi, but a part of it was, it split, really. It just split, and then my mom, we continued with the same kind of church. It was quite confusing, and also because I was young, I don't quite have all the information.
Yes.
But I know it split, and we continued going to the same church. And as some years passed by, if not maybe a year or two, we went now to a different church. We started going to a different church where my mom was also part of the congregation. And it has been that way ever since. So, and as we continued growing up with my siblings, everybody started having their own view of Christianity. There were those who were still going to church religiously, and then there were those who were not, like me. And I think I'm the first one who stopped going to church. And it's ironic because I'm the youngest, but it got to a point I stopped going to church. Or I will go every other time. My sisters were ministering in a different church. They were in worship team, so they were still going to church. And for me, I would go to church, but if there was something happening, if they had a play which they were participating in, then I would go to support, or I would go to an event and come back. But I wasn't really consistent. So this went on for quite a couple of years, and from the exposure I was also getting, in different spaces, I got into, feminism, where we were not talking about Christianity, but more of spirituality. So we were doing more, and that is something. Now I was learning a different kind of relationship with God.
And at this point, even before we get there,
yes,
to where are you in life? Are you in high school? Are you past high school? Where are you in life when you're getting into this new group?
I was in high school. I was in, I think, Form 2, Form 3. So I got into a program, it was an empowerment program for girls. So at that time, again, my faith in God was very shaky. And I learned about, spirituality in terms of, the relationship between you and God is really between you and God. You don't necessarily need to go to church or be in a specific religion. So there was also that exposure. And now what I took from that, I'm not saying this is what they were teaching, but what I took from that is that, really, I don't need to answer to anybody. I don't need to follow a book, the Bible. And maybe God is not even there, maybe we just exist and people look for reasons to believe, but it doesn't necessarily mean there's a God, because I've never seen him, So there was a lot of I had a lot of doubt. I had a lot of doubt in terms of believing in God. And then at some point, this was after high school, now around 2016. So in 2015, no, I'll go back in 2016, 2014. Through this program, I also went and learned. We were being taught different skills, different life skills, from governance, from sexual reproductive health and rights, peace building. It was really a diverse program, which I truly enjoyed and learned a lot from. So we also they had a medical camp. And a breast cancer survivor came and taught us how to do self-breast examination, because this program is, a girls' program. So we learned how to do self-breast examination as a skill, really. And I started doing that from around 2014, and I was doing it regularly, but not because of anything else, but because I just acquired the skill. So by end of 2015, when I was doing this self-examination, I noticed something in my breasts. And at some point, I know some days I would feel it, some days I wouldn't feel it. So I went to the hospital, a clinic nearby. They really didn't feel anything, so I went back home. After that, in a period of about 6 months, I went to about 4 other different hospitals. And funny thing is, in this different other hospital, in one of them, I was given antibiotics for now this lump I was feeling, because it had grown a little bit bigger and I was getting concerned. So, I was given antibiotics, finished all the medication, nothing happened. So I went again to, now the last hospital I went to was Mater Hospital. And so the doctor noticed there was a lump and they did a test. The test is called fine needle aspiration, which is just, they remove a sample of that tissue to just check, but it was inconclusive. And when that happened, I was sent to do another test. So now that is when my faith started coming back. I started remembering God. Because
so this whole time until when now you're realizing that there's something with your body, like there's some changes, then you remember, so God exists.
Ni kama yuko, he might be there. So, and I was like, okay, if there's God, I probably need to start praying.
Oh my goodness. And at this point now, even before now, you even tell us what happened next.
Yes.
Your mom,
yes.
You've said like she's such a church person.
Yes.
She's grown, she's a believer. Yeah. Didn't she never tried, telling you, hey, what's up? You need to.
Oh, she did. We used to really, argue about the same thing, because she was not happy with me not going to church. And, one of the things I also kept on saying is that I didn't believe in this God who's allowing bad things to happen to us. If I can take you back a little bit, in 2009, one other major thing which happened in our lives is, near Pumwani Hospital, opposite Pumwani Hospital, there's a big mall over there. So we used to live there. It was a missionary owned land. There were some houses and a church which was there, and another long story, but one of the pastors who was there sold it to the owners of the mall at the moment. So the houses were demolished and we were not at home. My mom was the only one who was at home, so we lost everything. We lost so many things, and we had again to start from scratch. For about 6 months, we didn't have a home of our own, so we were living with well-wishers, and it was not an easy time for us. it's not easy living with people.
Yeah.
And
I can tell.
And it's not easy not having options. So my mom used to work in the same compound. It was a huge compound, so her workshop was there. So her tools were stolen, her stock was stolen. She makes Maasai sandals to date. So she really lost everything, and we had to start again. And I was in high school, my sister was in school. We didn't have any other source of income apart from my mom. So that again, I had started going to church, I've remembered before then.
Yes.
And after that happened again, I was like, now, whenever I start believing in God, something happens, something bad happens. So I stopped again, and I felt I had such anger towards God, because I didn't understand why he's allowing these things to happen. So because of these instances, as much as my mom wanted me to continue going to church, or us to continue going to church, my siblings were still going. But as much as she really wanted us to go, and she would even tell us to sit down, and she would read the word of God and pray, there's that much you can do, because she won't pull me out of the house and take me to church. So there's that much she could do. And as much as she couldn't pull me out of the house to take me to church, it's a conversation which was always ongoing. And sometimes we will even wake up at night and you hear her praying for us, and praying that that we regain our faith and what have you. So she was doing more than she needed to for us, really.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now we at Mata Hospital. What happens next?
Yes, so the results came out and they were inconclusive. So I was sent to do another test called a core biopsy. So it's for the core biopsy, they remove again a sample, but it's like they use a needle. They remove a sample of the tissue, the tumor, and then they take it to the lab. But now, at that time, I didn't have insurance, including NHIF. And these tests are not cheap. So when I was asking around, first, I don't know if I had mentioned, in our family, we don't have any history of cancer at all. And being the youngest, this is something which we didn't expect. So we were so green in this process, and we were asking body for advice, trying to figure out what to do next. So when we shared about this core biopsy, which I was supposed to do, we were advised, instead of doing that, how about I just do a surgery to remove the lump, because eventually I was going to do it and it would have been cheaper. So we got a deal, the deal, you even pay the doctor directly via M-Pesa, and you go to an institution. Yeah, it's probably not legal. So, but we were being helped. So we I did the surgery. And then it came back, and it showed that I had something called ductal carcinoma in situ, which is stage 0 cancer, and it's also called precancer. And of course, I was 23 years old, so it could not have been cancer. How now? So we went again for a second opinion in a different laboratory. The results came back, and it was still the same diagnosis. So what I was informed is that because I had already done this surgery, the minor surgery, and it's called lumpectomy, removal of the lump and the surrounding tissue. So now I needed to do radiotherapy. This was around July 2016. Now that is when I started, praying every once in a while. Not so consistently, but every once in a while. I remember before getting, I think, the second results, the second opinion, I was just praying to God and telling him, if he's truly there, may those results be negative. And I was hoping and praying that the results I got were not mine, since I didn't even know where to start. And funny thing, I had just finished my first semester in school, in university. So I'll take you back again. I'm sorry, I'm doing
it's okay.
that.
It's okay. It's allowed. It's allowed.
I finished high school in 2011, but because of financial constraints, I couldn't go to college or university.
Okay.
So I started working immediately. I started doing promotions in supermarkets. So I was one of those people you avoid at the supermarket aisles. The ones who are forcing you to buy something you don't want. Yeah, so I was doing the promotions and I started saving up. At some point I did, I was doing babysitting. In 2015 I got an opportunity to even go to Switzerland to babysit.
Oh.
So by the time...
And it was in the legal way, not the job that you hear.
That was legally. It was, a friend, a family friend. It was very legal.
Okay.
So I went to work there for 3 months and I saved up. So when I came back to Kenya, I was able to now join university. And I joined Daystar University to do bachelor's in psychology and counseling. This was now in 2016. So when I did, I did first a pre-university course. And immediately I finished the pre-university course, which was ending in May 2016. I was diagnosed in June. So any savings I had to redirect them to now the test and doing the test really, and then also getting support from family and friends to just do the surgery and what have you. So at that time I was feeling somehow about God, because you see I had started progressing. I even went to Maju, and experienced summer and came back, and my life was actually moving. I had an internship with an organization, so my life was really progressing, and I now felt like I've already gone through the promotions in supermarket. I've gone to Switzerland. I've started getting different kinds of exposure, now going to summits and what have you, And then now I had to concentrate with treatment. So I went to Kenyatta for my treatment. And at that time, the cancer treatment was not as it is today. So I needed to do radiotherapy. There were 30 sessions. A session was 4,250. I can't remember because it was I remember thinking it's so expensive. But at the same time, the queues were quite long. Yeah. So this was June again, around June. I've gotten the results. I'm now in the process of starting the treatment. So when I went to see the oncologist, first it took me, I think, about 2 weeks before I saw the oncologist, which is now the cancer doctor. Or the doctor who specializes in cancer. It took me about 2 weeks, Monday through Friday. I would get to the hospital at around 6:30 in the morning, stay till around 3-4, and then we will be told we need to come back tomorrow because the queues were too long. By the time you got back to the hospital the following day, there was still a queue, since some people would actually sleep on the benches. So in a nutshell, it took me so long to see the doctor. And by the time I saw the doctor, so he told me I needed to do the radio. and I was put on a priority list because of my age, being 23 and having now stage 0 breast cancer.
Wow.
So I'm put on this list to start radiotherapy, and the queues were so long in that I was given the start date of radiation to be the following year in January.
Yeah.
So that was 6 years after getting the diagnosis. And unfortunately, cancer does not know how to wait. So, and at the same time as I was doing this, I was also looking for different options, like looking for programs where I can get treatment, where they facilitate treatment. So I got into a program which sent me to one of the private hospitals to do radiotherapy for free. So when I went to this private hospital, as the doctor was examining me, he noticed that I still had a lump. So now I had to again start all over again with the test, the blood work, the MRIs, the ultrasound, and then I was sent to do a biopsy. Now the test which I had skipped the previous time, I did it, and it came back showing that the tumor was not the whole tumor was not removed. So I had like smaller particles of the tumor in my breast. And so I was given the option of either doing another surgery, minor surgery, to try and remove all the lumps, and then do radiotherapy and then be on treatment, or I do mastectomy, which is now the removal of the whole breast, and then I was going to be put on medication, a tablet a day for 5 years. So that was the cheapest alternative I got, and that is what I went for, having one of my breasts removed. So I did that in September, and when the results came back, it was still stage 0. So I didn't need to do radiotherapy or chemotherapy. I was just put on medication for 5 years. So 3 years down the line, actually a year after that, that's when it really dawned on me that I had had a mastectomy. My breast was removed, and I got into really bad deep depression. I was not getting out of the house. I lost my friends because I wasn't, I was really isolating, and I got in a space where I didn't like life at all. I didn't like the image I was seeing when I looked at myself in the mirror, because I identified my beauty as also, my breast, as they are part of our femininity as women. So it really took a toll on me, and I was still 23 years old at that time. So my family also encouraged me to start to do therapy. I had not done any therapy or gone to any support group during that period, which I now know is something very important as you're going through a cancer treatment. So I did therapy, so many sessions of therapy, and I started learning how to love myself differently. During this time, I would pray sometimes, and sometimes I would believe in God. So it really was, it depended with the mood or the phase I was in, but my faith was still very shaky. So I started loving myself differently, and I accepted who I am, and I accepted that I had done the mastectomy. And that time I didn't have an option. Right now there are so many options out here. You can do a reconstruction, which you get, your breast can be reconstructed. You'll go in surgery, they'll remove your breast, but they can put an implant or other procedures, and you'll get the reconstruction. So at that time I didn't have that option, and they were just too expensive. So that happened, and that was in around 2017, then 2018. So I was struggling with my mental health. Then I started now feeling much better, and I managed to go again to Switzerland to do that job.
The one that you're doing,
the babysitting
one.
Yes, and then I saved up again, came back, and then resumed university. So now I enrolled for a bachelor's degree of psychology and counseling, something which I was before in the diagnosis I was passionate about, but now and then after the diagnosis I even became more passionate about it, because I wanted to know how our brains work, as human beings, how we relate with each other, and most importantly, how I can support people who are going or who have gone through what I had gone through, because I did a lot of therapy. And that was in 2018, and then 2018 I got a job, I got another job, and I started. So my life again was flowing.
It's flowing and
it's
coming
flowing
back quite nicely.
Yes. So December 2018, on the scar of the mastectomy, I noticed something small underneath the mastectomy scar. So I go to the hospital. Throughout, by the way, there are still checkups you need to go for. So after every 3 months, there are regular checkups you still need to go for, regardless of whether you've been declared cancer free or not. So I was still doing that, but on that particular visit I went because of that small thing which was now growing underneath the scar. And the doctor was seeing that, then just brushed it off, and he told me I need to stop worrying and start living, and that
I feel like those are so harsh words.
I know, because I remember, it's true, I was really anxious, and because I was anxious and I was also in a depressive phase. So because of that, I think that also contributed to me thinking that it's probably just in my head. And I went back home. 9 months later, I went back to the hospital, and this time around it was because I had some lymph nodes on the neck, some small swellings which were not painful, and I had them for a while. So I went to have them checked, and I did now that test called the core biopsy, both on the scar and the neck, and they came back as positive for breast cancer. So the cancer had come back. Then I did a full body scan, which is called a PET CT scan, and it showed that the cancer was present both in the neck and the scar, and also in one of my lungs. So it had also gone to one of the lungs, and that is now stage 4 breast cancer. And with stage 4, because I had done so much research as well, I knew with stage 4 there is no cure. To date, there is no known cure for stage 4. When you go to hospital, they just manage it so that it doesn't progress fast, to kind of buy you time. So when I went to see the doctor, I remember it was a day before my 27th birthday, and the doctor, I asked the doctor, what my prognosis was, and she told me, I think you have another 1 year with us. So, but at that time, because I think God also just guarded my mental health, really, because I remember leaving the doctor's office and thinking, okay, I have 365 days before I die, so what can I do during this 1 year? And then I took my phone out, opened the notes pad, and started a bucket list. Started writing down all the things I would want to do before this 1 year elapses, before I die, really. And that is the approach I took. It could have been also like a coping mechanism. So it was so interesting, also seeing the different reactions with my family. I informed them what I had been told by the doctor, And as much as I knew the results, I had requested the hospital to send me the results of the scan even before I went to see the doctor. So I had already known of the diagnosis, but I decided not to share yet, to just go to the hospital, listen to a doctor first.
And hear from the horse's mouth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that happened, and then I came back. I informed my family, and the first thing my mom said was, she knows God can do miracles.
Yeah.
Miracles happen, and she's going to pray, and I'm going to be okay. And I remember just thinking, Aki, my poor mom, she doesn't know what this means. And initially I didn't want to do treatment because I knew how chemotherapy, radiotherapy can really take a toll on your body, and I didn't want to be sick then die. I thought, I'd rather enjoy my life, tick off stuff on my bucket list than die. So I had already accepted the diagnosis, but I decided to do the treatment for my mom's sake, so that she can at least know that I am fighting for my life, so she doesn't feel so hopeless. I decided to do the treatment, and on this other end I was also ticking off my bucket list. And one of the things I know I say even to date is I started living when I was told I was dying. And it is it's very ironic, because I remember that time I was really focused on just my career, school work. I missed so many family functions because I was either working or I needed to make more money or something. So I missed so many family functions, and I realized those are the things which were even more important to me than just my career. So I really started living. I joined, for instance, an organization which works with cancer survivors and caregivers, and they hike to raise awareness. And during in 2020, we actually hiked Mount Kenya. My sister was also part of the team.
Yes.
We hiked Mount Kenya to the top and back. 2022, we climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with the same group. And last year I did again Mount Kenya.
Oh.
And when I was doing this, and as I was ticking off this list, I started realizing that there is life beyond this cancer diagnosis. And you see, as time went by, I was actually getting better. I was waiting to die by end of 2020, but now I was starting to get better. The chemotherapy I did worked better than we anticipated. By mid-2021, when I did the scan, they could not find any active cancer in my body. Cancer cell in my body, which is like remission for stage 4, because again with stage 4, the medically you will not be told you're cancer free. So that was in 2021, and we had it was such a relief for my family, knowing that the cancer had gone to my lung, but there's a tumor, but it's not active, it's not growing, it's just there. So that was one of the miracles I saw, and that is again when I went back to God. Because I remember receiving these results, the test results, at around midnight, and the first person I called was my mom. So I called her and I told her, Mom, your prayers have been answered.
Oh, man.
And we started crying, and we were praying, and we were thanking God, because this is something we were not expecting, as the cancer I was diagnosed with is aggressive. And being given a year, then 1 year and a half later, you're being told that the cancer cannot be seen. So that was a miracle for sure. So my faith was strengthening a bit, but I remember just saying, these are my mom's prayers, because I knew they were not my prayers. And then I continued with the treatment, but the treatment was so expensive. For instance, one of the medication I was taking is called Herceptin. I needed to take it every 3 weeks for as long as it works, and it was 100,000. That is 1.7 million per year. And it's only one medication. I've not talked about the rest of the medications I was taking, and the injection, and the consultation fees, and the imaging. It's just expensive. So by around March 2022, I stopped the treatment, because I was I didn't have, there were financial constraints, and there was also medical negligence a bit, just like the similar one I had before when I went to the hospital and the doctor didn't do any test or send me for any test. So I stopped in 2022. And I remember when I stopped, I was thinking, you know what, I've done my best. Because I really felt like I've done my best in terms of fighting for my life medically, and all my salary was just going straight to medication. I couldn't do anything with my salary at that point. So I even moved in with my sister because I could not pay bills. So that was part of how my faith was just going up and down the hill, And at last year, so I stopped treatment, and so however, I was doing checkups very often to just check if there's any progression of the cancer, if my organs are okay. So at some point last year, I did a PET scan, which is the scan of the full body, and it showed that the cancer was back. But yes, it was back, but it was not bad. Like it was back, but it's not a bad case scenario, because all my organs are okay, and that in itself is actually a miracle.
Such a big one.
Because I stayed for so long without any treatment. And even when I went back to the hospital, the oncologist could not believe it. So they were asking me if I've been on any treatment. And I told them the only treatment I've been on is probably prayers, because they were saying it doesn't make sense that I have not been on treatment, but my organs are okay. So it was like, in terms of even faith, it was like, it has been a roller coaster, because at some point last year I also lost hope. Being in this space, this is my 9th year being in the cancer space. You gain friends, and some of them die because of this disease, and others get recurrences, others are newly diagnosed, so it can be very heavy emotionally. And last year was one of those years where I lost so many friends to cancer, and I just could not, it was just a lot happening. And that was just part of it. And of course, I'm still a human being, that cancer is just part of my story. There is the career bit. There is also the school, which I had resumed in 2018, and then 2019 I had to stop again. So there was also that, and there was a lot happening, and I could not really manage. My mental health again was really shaken because of the whole experience, and I didn't. I really gave up. I would really say that at some point last year I totally gave up, and I ended up. It's a different story, but I ended up going to Kenyatta Hospital to see this doctor who God just used for sure, because at that time I was in that phase where I was thinking again, there is no God. So when we finished the consultation, the doctor asked me, he asked me if I was in a hurry. I was with my sister, and then I told him I wasn't. So he told me he wants to ask me a question. It's not medical related.
Yeah.
I don't have to answer. He informed me I don't need to have that conversation if I don't want to. But because it's a doctor who I knew from a friend of mine, I told him, I can listen to his, we can have a chat. And then he asked me a very simple but hard question. So he asked me, let me ask you, what is your relationship with God?
Wow.
And this was the last place I thought I would be asked about my faith, So when I immediately started telling him, I remember even started crying because I was feeling so emotional and so hurt and angered because this God was not fair. And that is how I started building my faith in God again. He still is such a godsend. So he told me that day, he won't even charge me for the consultation, but my payment will be for me to go and read the book of John, and then we can have a discussion. And that was the deal. So it took me a while before I read the book, but I eventually did.
Read it.
And he used to follow up, and one of the things he was telling me is that, I don't need to agree with the Bible. I don't need to agree with him. He just wants me to read, and then we have a discussion. I can just tell him what I think about it. And let me tell you, that was the best way to take, God would have used somebody to bring me back to him, because I didn't feel forced. I did not feel judged. I didn't feel like I'm obliged to believe in God or to believe that there is God. So it really started with reading the Bible. I would read the Bible, we would have a discussion, and once in a while I would still go out partying. That was and I will tell him I'm not going to church, and he was very very patient. So that happened for a couple of months, and then some point last year I started going to church every once in a while. Then that is how my faith in God started being built up. And I started from reading the Bible because I felt I needed to pay back this consultation,
Okay.
to now reading the Bible because I want to. So it has been quite a roller coaster, and as I was still finding a footing in my own relationship with God. That is, around that period is when I was still struggling with my mental health, and I was still struggling with having hope or faith in anything, because I didn't quite understand what was happening around me, and I didn't know why these things were happening to me.
Yes.
And then I decided to start my treatment earlier this year. And in the process, because I got the diagnosis last year, but I wasn't ready mentally to start the treatment. But earlier this year, when I was ready and I started now going for the checkups, then I learned that when I found out I'm pregnant.
Oh, my goodness.
So now the challenge there was I had some swellings under my armpit and the chest, which needed to now be biopsied to check if it's like the cancer. It's like a protocol the doctors usually do. After the scan, they will send you for biopsy, etc. So and before the biopsy, so I went back to the doctor and told her, you know what, so now, because sometimes I'm a joker, so I told her, by the way, doc, I decided stage 4 breast cancer is not enough. Let me bring another challenge on the table. And we started laughing because I told her, now I'm pregnant. And now the thing about why this is significant is because the breast cancer I've been diagnosed with is hormonal positive, which basically means like it feeds on hormones. So, and when you're pregnant, the hormone levels are high.
Yeah.
So what I remember being told even before is that I shouldn't get pregnant, because if I do, as the baby grows, so will the cancer, because of the hormones. And the chances also of getting pregnant, since I had done so many treatments, were very slim.
Yeah.
So this is something which I think from 2019, it's a dream I had. It's a dream which was long forgotten. So I get pregnant, and first of all, it's a shock. Like, how is it possible? Since I was menopause I was medically induced to be on menopause since 2016, so that the cancer doesn't grow fast. And so there's that, and there's also the part where I'm not supposed to, and I already had a recurrence. So what we agreed with the doctor is to monitor, because I of course the doctors will advise me to terminate the pregnancy, but I didn't want to, and we agreed that we first monitor and see the best, make a decision which makes sense, which is logical. And during that period, let me tell you, I have never prayed in my life. The praying of you pray, you fast half day and you continue praying.
Yeah.
That is how, having my sisters as well and my mom having prayer sessions together, because this is something I did not want to terminate the pregnancy.
Yeah.
But I also knew that medically it's really risky, both for me and the baby. And so I was given a period of time where I could wait, where it was safe for me to just wait, but there was a cut-off time where I needed to make the decision. And I was told if I decide to still keep the baby, because there are some women who still have their babies. Some of them actually get diagnosed while pregnant and they do chemotherapy. Some of them get pregnant before treatment and they still continue with the treatment. So it depends. After now the first trimester. So I was told if I decide then to keep the baby, I need to start chemotherapy after the first 3 months. So during the first 3 months, one of the things which happened, and it just puzzled me, even my doctor is puzzled, is the swellings which I had before the pregnancy just resolved by themselves.
Oh my goodness.
I'm telling you, there is nothing even to biopsy. They resolved. I had started getting quite ill, and that is one of the reasons I was contemplating on whether I want to get treatment, because in my head I just knew I don't have much time. I was physically now starting to feel the effects. I started getting better. I started getting more energetic, and there was nothing which the red flags which the doctor had said
about
we need to check, to look out for. One of them was I would have difficulty in breathing, because some of the lymph nodes which were seen, they were just near my airway, and I was told because of now the high hormone levels in my body, they will inflame, they will grow, meaning they'll close the airway. So that will be among the first red flags to know that the cancer is growing as the baby is growing. I have to say, I am now 8 months pregnant.
Wow.
And I don't have any of the red flags which the doctors said. And the last, I went to see her about 2 weeks ago because I still need to go for this test. I went to see her about 2 weeks ago, and she told me, listen, I honestly don't have a medical explanation for what your body, how your body is reacting. You should be really sick by now. So, and I told her it's really God.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Indeed. If it's not God, who can we say it is?
Isn't it?
It's the doings of the Lord, and Mwende Mutuse is taking us through her journey and her testimony of being
metastatic.
Yes, breast cancer thriver. And we're going to be breaking bread together, even as she encourages us and tell us through all this what she has learned out of it. Which has been that one scripture that you've been working with, and you actually even encourage someone listening this particular evening?
Yeah, so one of my favorite scriptures is Hebrew 11:1. I've actually opened it on my phone, so I'll read it.
Yes.
Now, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. And I would say that as much as we have been speaking about faith, and one thing I know for sure is that God will meet you where you are. And now I understand that God is not, Jesus didn't come for the perfect people. He came for us. And, I truly believe that he works in mysterious ways, which we cannot see or understand. So if you believe, you need to you'll see God in different ways, but you also need to want to see him. And sometimes he won't show up the way we would like him to show up, but God is there. And I am a firm believer that he's there and he has good plans for us. And I would not be here right now if it was not for him.
Amen.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for being vulnerable with us, and also for your encouraging us this particular evening. And probably there's one person listening outside there, they've just discovered that they've been also they also have cancer. What will you tell them and encourage them this evening? Or even probably it's not even them, but our caregivers listening, and they're finding it difficult to pay and cater for these expenses. How will you encourage them?
I will tell them it's not the end of the world. It might feel that way, but having a cancer diagnosis is not the end of the world. I would want to appreciate all the caregivers out there, because we really need that support of caregivers.
Yes.
And caregivers also need support, because we sometimes forget that they are also carrying a burden of this diagnosis. A cancer diagnosis affects not just the patient but also the people around them. So I would say that your spiritual health, your relationship with God is important. It really anchors you, especially when you don't, you're not getting the results you want to get or you're hoping for. But take heart knowing that there are so many survivors out here. Honestly, I was given a year to live in 2019. This is 2024. 5 years later, I am here and I am doing really well, and I'm in the process of bringing another human in this world. I can't wait. So I totally believe that miracles still happen. And one of the pastors I listened to, things he likes saying is that he prayed to God for a miracle, and if he doesn't get the miracle, he hopes that he is a miracle to other people. So I would say that there is hope, and let me tell you, there is hope. Do not give up. Whether you're going through this, don't give up. And now on the cancer advocacy, I would also want to encourage people, both men and women, to go for screenings every year, whether you have symptoms or not. Early detection saves lives. The earlier the cancer is caught, the better. And cancer is not just for women or the elder or senior women. Men do also get breast cancer. So we need to know you're normal, so that when something is off, you can actually have it checked. But it's key to do regular checkups every year. There are so many medical camps which are free. Take advantage of them.
Wow. And thank you so much for sharing with us your story. We really appreciate for being vulnerable, even on the airways, like on a national platform. We really appreciate. Mwende, where can people get you?
On social media, Mwende and _Mutiso, Mwende Mutiso, Facebook, Instagram, and also YouTube.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it. The pleasure is all ours.
96.9 FM, Pearl Radio.